Voice for Youth Against Violence provides a platform for vulnerable young people to be able to grow, achieve and succeed by looking at education, training and employment prospects, by providing an avenue, a business plan where they actually go into communities and they run a 16 to 24 week program with vulnerable young people from different services coming from different backgrounds. Throughout that period of time, they're then mentored by a community leader. That relationship is built and trust is built. Hard, sensitive issues are tackled, which then has a positive reflection on their mindset and in their perspective. And as a result, they then go on to be trained up to go and train another group of young people for another 16 to 24 weeks. And it has a spiral effect.
And what age group are we talking about then?
We're talking about anything from 10, 11 years old up to 30, 35.
And it sounds pretty all-encompassing. It's not just... they're not just pointed in one direction. It sounds like they get quite a lot of help.
Yeah, it's we take a holistic approach because it's quite a multidisciplinary practice, so that we work with other organisations and other services. So, for example, if there's a young man who's really interested in bodybuilding, then we work with the local gym and we have local gym partnerships where they're able to do a personal training course at a level 1 where it's fully funded. So they go to that course, travel's paid for, so it minimises excuses in terms of I can't get there. Food is also provided, so they're able to actually enjoy their learning instead of going to, because what we've found is a lot of young people were going to college, were going to apprenticeships and going to places and having no money for food. If they've gone to an apprenticeship, they're using that money and they're spending it on other things and they're wasting their money. So we're teaching them how to budget their money.
And how do they come through your door?
From word of mouth and from being on radio stations, from doing documentaries, from doing interviews with Piers Morgan. It was a really good interview, and actually it was quite positive that actually someone like Piers Morgan would use his platform to allow us to raise awareness around acid attacks and the devastating effect it's having on people in our society.
And what do you think about acid attacks? How can they be reduced, stopped?
There's multiple factors and there's multiple approaches that need to be taken. So one of them is looking at the regulation of how this is being distributed amongst our services on our streets. How is this coming into the hands of a 16-year-old? You could be a 16-year-old and walk into a DIY shop, a local domestic shop or a shop that sells these products. You could go in there and pay $6.99 and walk out with it.
But the question before that is, why would they want to?
Their mindset is one of that they're in war and they have enemies. As a result of that, violence needs to be the main tool that's used within these situations. So the more violent you are, the more predominant you're seen by your victim. A lot of them come from dysfunctional homes where their moral compass is not aligned with that of society's norm. So what we as society at whole deem as normal is actually quite opposite. And the rules that take place, the rules that are present on the streets are very different to maybe your world and the world that I live in and the world that we all live in currently is very different in terms of what happens on the streets and how to survive. These young people are trying to survive and are trying to navigate through society.
How did you pull yourself out of that world?
I found faith in God. Practically, it was going to university and working hard and staying dedicated to that plan and persevering through hard times. I was on the path, I was on my way to prison. That was a future prospect for myself from the ages of 11, first being arrested. So
why were you arrested at the age of 11? Was that your first arrest?
Yeah, it was a robbery.
How did it feel doing that at the time? Can you remember?
At the time, it felt quite heroic. Because you've got this 11-year-old running into a shop, taking things, trying to jump over the cannon turn, take money at the till, taking money at the till, ultimately. And you've got older peers not necessarily involved, but almost facilitating the robbery.
Egging you on?
Yeah, egging me on. And that excitement and that crowd applaud was quite significant at 11-year-olds at that time in my life. And coming from quite a hard background in terms of upbringing, single parent household, that was hard because my dad wasn't around and didn't take care of his responsibilities in terms of fathering my brothers and sisters, which left tremendous pressure on my mum as a single parent, which she did her best and worked very hard to give us a decent upbringing and really to show us what was the right way. And it was hard, and crime was always a temptation where I lived and where I come from. And
Can you remember when you were first tempted by crime?
well, probably stealing something from my mum's fridge. It felt like a crime.
What did you steal?
I think it was a bit of Alizé. Or Lambrini, a bottle of Lambrini from fridge. And then the next one from there was at school, stealing stuff from school. Like just going through the staff room, robbing kids, phones, toys.
And did you, when you were doing that, was that a thrill? Did you think it was wrong? What?
Yeah and no, I knew it was wrong because I knew if I got caught, I'd probably be excluded because I was on my final warning, and if I knew if I got caught, my mum would probably give me a beating, but it was right in terms of I needed it, and I wanted it.
Why did you need it and want it? Can you remember?
Why did I need it? Because I was tired of getting free school meals and still being hungry for 8 hours between the next time I'm going to eat, or not having the latest clothes, going to school with clothes that I've been wearing for 3-4 terms. Wherever the opportunity was in terms of getting involved in crime. And this is what it is for a lot of young people. This is how it starts. It's not necessarily you go out saying, I'm going to join a gang or let me throw my life down the drain. No one says that. It's more in terms of how can I better my circumstance, or there's a need or there's a want that's been created. You can't differentiate that this is something you want and this is something you need, and this is the problem.
What happened after the arrest?
After the arrest, I got took into the police station, and I remember being too young to go into the cells. So they put me in front of the sergeant on a stool, and I sat there for a few hours. Well, I got picked up from my mum. Actually, no, I didn't get picked up. I got taken to social services because my mum didn't come for a long time, for a few hours, and she was quite annoyed. And she left me there for a little while, and then when I got back home, my mum was angry, and I got a beating, but that didn't really have any effect. I didn't really care.
So as you got older, did you carry on with your life of crime?
It became a lifestyle because I've been doing it since I was 11.
Were you good at it?
I got better. I've seen it all. I've done drug dealing. I've been across the whole spectrum of crime, and I've paid the price for a lot of it.
What sort of price did you pay at the time?
Freedom, in terms of not necessarily going to prison, but not being safe anywhere. In terms of the amount of crimes and what kind of crimes I was committing, the people I was associated with meant that I wasn't safe in my house, I wasn't safe anywhere. It meant that I was always in trouble with the law. It meant that my family was in danger. It meant that my mental well-being was affected. It had lots and lots and lots of negative consequences as a result.
Does it feel like you, looking back, I mean, things have changed a lot for you, feel like, but when you think of that, a boy and then young man, how do you feel about him?
I've got a mixed opinion in terms of I don't regret it, because if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be the man I am today, and I wouldn't have learnt the lessons that I would have learnt, and how I've implemented them into my practice, into my business, and into the theories that we have in terms of tackling crime and helping young people get out of crime, which is effective. So I can't regret that. But I guess I regret the situations and the amount of people that were hurt, and the amount of time that I feel that I've wasted.
Sometimes people change course in life because there's an individual incident, or there's a low point they reach and they think, I'm not doing this anymore. Sometimes it's more gradual and there's no specific second when something changed. What was it for you?
There were multiple events occurring. A lot of them, one of the main ones were my friends being murdered. That made me think about my life quite intensely.
Friends plural? More than one friend?
More than one friend. I've got friends that have been shot. I've got friends that have been stabbed to death. I've got friends that have killed themselves.
Did you imagine being an old man at that age?
No, I didn't think. When I was 14, I didn't think I'll make it past 16, 17, 18 years old. I didn't think that I would live to see 26 years because of the current circumstances and the situations that I was involved in.
And did that encourage you to think short term? That encouraged you to think little about your own life?
It does. To devalue life. It teaches you to make erratic choices because you no longer
you might not be here
weigh
tomorrow.
The consequences, because you might not be here tomorrow to see the consequences. So you live every day like it's your last day.
Who do you miss most?
I miss them all, man. I miss everyone that I've lost, especially those to the streets, because there's nothing that can be done to bring that back, and for what it was for, it was never worth it. But that didn't change anything. That made me I started thinking about my life, but I was still in a cycle. And even myself, and I've been in hospital twice. I've been on the other side of when things go wrong, and that made me think about my life, but things still didn't change.
So how did you know, why aren't you dead?
Because I'm blessed, and I have a purpose, and I'm here to serve that purpose. And
But how did you pull yourself away from that life?
I found faith in God.
Who told you about God?
It was a series of people in my life. Just God. It was actually life events. Like, you go to a funeral home, you're burying someone, and you're automatically going to think that could be me. And I thought that could be me. And why is that not me? And I could never find the answer other than someone's watching over you. And that's kept me strong.
But you obviously decided to make a change in your life, having had all of those thoughts. Tell me about the practical changes you made.
So the practical changes were removing myself physically from my social group.
How do you do that after all those years?
You might have to move out of the area to lay low, change all, contact in terms of how people can contact you.
Did you sort of disappear?
For a little while, yeah, a lot of it. And it was very difficult. But it's one of those things that you have to do in terms of bettering your life. You have to make changes to better your life. And if I'm around people that haven't got the best for me and that are not bringing the best out of me, why would I stay around and invest time in you? Well, I went to university at the ages of 21 years old.
How difficult was it to get in?
It was quite difficult to get in, but before that I did about maybe 7, 10 different courses. I remember working and helping at a community project. I remember helping out at public services like Connections, helping young people in terms of being a peer mentor, and still being on my way in terms of the transition. I was still in the because it's a transition. It doesn't, like you say, it doesn't happen overnight. You don't just wake up and all of a sudden you're educated, all of a sudden you're a next gang member, all of a sudden you're successful, and all of a sudden you're doing great things and you're having a positive impact on society. That transition doesn't take place overnight. It's a period of time that there is no timing on, and it's a continual thing that you have to continuously work on.
So tell me about university. What did you study and how was it?
I did a degree in youth work and ministry, and I received the Principal's Award, and I got Student of the Year for my outstanding achievement, dedication, perseverance.
What did your mum make of that?
She was very, very proud, as she was invited to the ceremony, and it was a great achievement for myself, someone who was kicked out of school year 4, year 5, maybe 4 or 5 primary schools. We're talking about, by the time I was 10 years old, I was kicked out of 4 or 5 schools, and it was hard for me to get into school. And when I finally did get into a school, I barely made it out of that school. And I went on to go to college courses, apprenticeships, to find what I was passionate about. And then I went to university and outshined my fellow students that came from a more privileged background.
How did that feel?
That felt tremendous, and it was well deserved. And it showed me that anything that you put your mind to, you can achieve. It's going to take dedication, discipline, and determination, and perseverance. I refuse to lose. I honestly do. I refuse to lose, because I believe that if there is no opportunity, that you should find the tools to create opportunities, find the tools to build opportunities.
What do you think of, you're obviously involved with your organisation. When government, central and local, tries to help boys who were in your position, how well do they do that? What do you think of initiatives to help the sort of people who are living now the life that you were?
I think that there's so much that the government can do, so much more the government could do, and there's so much that's absent in terms of what the government are doing, in terms of helping, but they're not. And instead, they're making tremendous cuts. And these cuts are having tremendous effects in terms of the deprivation it's causing in these communities. And as a result, crime is on the rise. As a result, we're seeing young people filling out our prison cells. We're seeing overrun prisons. as a result of these cuts.
And in terms of violence in the sort of communities that you try and help, what about government initiatives to cut the violence?
There is no initiatives in our communities, and there is none in our society. And if there are, I'm unaware of them. And if there are, I'm unaware of their positive effect and impact they're having, because they don't seem to be having any impact or stopping any murders or any killings from the communities that I live and work in.
What about the ending gang violence and exploitation approach? Now, I knew I was talking to you, so we asked the government for their views on all of this. They said our ending gang violence and exploitation approach, set out in 2016, is working on reducing violence and protecting vulnerable individuals from exploitation by gangs, and we continue to work with key partners, including law enforcement, local authorities, and the voluntary sector to tackle the issues of gangs. How does that sound to you?
It sounds optimistic. It sounds like more could be done in terms of making that a reality. It's not going to take one single initiative. It's going to take multiple initiatives, multiple partnerships.
Do you meet boys who remind you of you?
All the time.
What's that like?
It's very inspiring, and it motivates me, because every young person that I see the potential in. And I do see me. I see a bit of me. And when I see that bit of me, it makes me think, if I had someone that saw something great in me and actually pushed me and mentored me and supported me, I would be a better man. As a society, we've let down our young people, and we have to take responsibility. We keep putting the right questions in the wrong contexts. We need to be putting questions in, what can we be doing to better things? What could the police be doing? What can the government be doing? What part has the government played in this? What part has Metropolitan Police in terms of their communication with these young people, and knowing that they've had tremendous cuts? Why has there been cuts? Why has there been cuts to a service that's detrimental to society? If crime is on the rise, there shouldn't be cuts. There should be extra funding put into these services to tackle the problem. What you're saying in essence is, we don't care about what crime's going on. We're more worried about the money that we need to save. We've got other agendas that are taking place, and policing and keeping Britain safe is not a priority. That is shocking, and that's worrying.
Finally, do you now, at the age of 14, you couldn't imagine being 16. What do you imagine for yourself in, say, 10 years' time?
I haven't thought that far in terms of where I'm going to be in 10 years, because I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. But where I would like to be in 10 years is, I would like to see great change in the world, great change in society, and I would like to have a great part and influence in governing that change and influencing that change, inspiring young people to be able to go on and replicate and to produce what I'm doing. And if we do that, I think that the world will be just a bit more of a better place, of a better place, of a better place.